You're jamming with 106.9 The Arrow. The best music, period.
You want to be a part of the panel? Now you can. Join the conversation anytime we live stream by sending us a message in the chat rooms or messaging us on Skype. Send a message to the Arrow Radio on Skype and you can join in. Or you can send us an email to show@taboo.media and let us know what's on your mind. Don't want to use your computer? No problem. Give us a call at 970-999-5176 and talk to us live or leave us a message to be played on the air. Join us today. Taboo and 106.9 The Arrow. We're not afraid. Hello, ladies and germs, or gentlemen, as the case may be. You know, you might be germs, I don't know. It's me, it is Zan. I am here with Alex. Say hello, Alex.
Hello, Alex.
And you are watching Taboo, or listening, depending on where you're at. I wanted to let you guys know that this is going to be a longer than normal episode. And hello to whoever's in the room. Or in the videos, or listening on 106.9 The Arrow. This is going to be a longer than normal episode, mainly because it covers a topic that's very serious. Hey, Smooth, how's it going? Thank you for the ice cream already. I could use some about it now. But we're covering things like toxic relationships and domestic violence. So why is this going to be longer than the normal episodes? Quite simply, it's a pretty serious topic. I mean, it's a very serious topic. But it's also one, I did a dry run, the other night, and it took just me, an hour and a half. And that was without anything that Alex had to say. So I'm sure this is going to be a little lengthier type of situation. But yeah, we do want to talk about domestic violence, toxic relationships. I think pretty much everybody listening and anybody around the world has probably heard it, been in one, had a friend who was in one. It's bad.
It really is. It's traumatic. It's very traumatic for at least the victims. I don't know about the abusers, and I don't know if it was what causes them to be the abuser, but yeah, it's traumatic to say the least.
Well, and some of that, I mean, it's really hard to say what causes a person to become abusive. Upbringing is to blame in about 90% of them. If you look at even, domestic violence, toxic relationship, it's one step away from serial killer, in my opinion. Just because, okay, let me preface this. Everybody gets mad sometimes. That's okay. It's how you handle it. You don't need to go hitting, punching, pulling hair, biting, kicking, screaming, throwing things, et cetera, et cetera. It kind of hits home. I think, like I said, I think everybody listening or watching has either been in one or known somebody who was in some form of toxic relationship. So we're going to start off just kind of with a little preface of everything that we're going to talk about. Toxic relationships, of course. What are they? Are you in one? We'll discuss things of the nature of how the signs to see if you are in an actual toxic relationship. How to spot the signs of an abuser. This could be boyfriend, girlfriend, friend, neighbor, relative, stranger. And then how you get out of a toxic relationship, which is sometimes easier said than done. We'll go into some stories. And we'll also talk a little bit about how you can heal from a toxic relationship. So if at any time you guys have anything to say, please jump in. Feel free to give us a call to go live on the air with us. Also, I do want to mention that if you or somebody you know is in a domestic violence or a toxic relationship and needs to talk to somebody, please, by all means, call the national hotline. It's 1-800-799-7233, and get the help that you need. Okay. Give me one quick second here because it seems like something isn't right. The screen seems awfully small today, and I'm not sure why. So go ahead and talk for a minute, Alex.
Yeah, I can definitely say with a 110% surety, I have definitely been in one. I'm just glad it's been limited to one. Now, granted, it was 9 years worth, which, again, as you mentioned just a couple minutes ago, getting out of toxic relationships is definitely easier said than done. Just for a multitude of variety of reasons. It can be so many reasons, threats, guilt.
Oh, we'll get into all of that here in a little bit. First off, I want to explain what a toxic relationship actually is. And this is the very definition of a toxic relationship. So I'm just going to read this really quickly. A toxic relationship is any relationship that is unfavorable to you or to others. The foundations of any relationship, healthy or not, are most commonly established upon a mutual admiration and respect, but it can in time become remarkably unhealthy. Now, pardon me. It is the poisonous atmosphere that distinguishes a merely bad or troublesome relationship from a toxic relationship. Toxic relationships can prevent those involved from living a productive, healthy life. A toxic relationship can be caused by two polar opposite personality types. The toxicity is caused by an incompatibility of the persons involved in relationships. In some cases, there is no one necessarily to blame for the toxicity. Rather, the toxicity, boy, say that 5 times fast, is caused by the inability to communicate and establish healthy boundaries, conversation, and communication. I think a lot of toxic type relationships actually start with poor communication. I believe I'm a very firm believer in communication in relationships, and the one that I have been in, and we'll get into that in the story section later on, but I believe it was mainly the communication aspect that had broken down, and it became a very unhealthy type relationship. Oh, look, there's my headline. What is a toxic relationship? All right. So let's move on to signs. Signs that you're in a toxic relationship. And there's a lot of them because there's different levels of abuse or toxicity in a relationship. But these are kind of the 5 top overwhelmingly common ones. Number 1, it feels bad a lot or all the time. And what I mean by that is you feel hollow going to bed, and even worse when you're waking up. Again, this is a dead ringer for needs not being met. You know, there's some aspect of that relationship that isn't met. So you feel hollow or empty all or most of the time. You also feel bad when you see others being lovey with each other. And I'm sure all of us can agree that when we've been in a relationship of any time that wasn't meeting our needs, toxic or not, you know, you see that old couple holding hands and you're like, wow, that's what I want to be. Or in this case, if you're in a toxic relationship, you look at that same thing and you're like, I wonder if he hits her or him. You know, that is one thing I do want to mention too, that toxic relationships are not limited to women. Neither is domestic abuse. It's, you know, transgender, if you will. It can be men or women who are the victims in a toxic relationship. Also, you know, there's those feelings of jealousy when you see other couples. But part 2, if you will, of the 5 is you're always waiting for that other shoe to drop. And I know, Alex, you and I have talked about this a little off air, and you were mentioning this when we were going through this too the other day.
Yeah, you're kind of always on edge with this one. It's like, what is the next time that, yeah, you can see it coming as it says on the screen, but it's like, when is the next time he or she is gonna just like go off the deep end? What is the next thing I'm doing wrong?
Yeah. And like it says, sometimes you can see it coming, like, oh crap, I went out and spent $20 on a shirt for myself. They're going to kill me. But there's other times that you had no idea it was going to happen. And this can be anything. A bad day at work can trigger this kind of experience. There's so many times where I've either had friends or I've heard of stories from people that, say, I had no idea. I had no idea he was going to go off on such a little thing. Or I had no idea she would sit there and yell at me in a restaurant because I ordered something she didn't like. It's just really weird how it all works. You also want to be avoid of traps. And by that, it's the old saying, well, would you rather go out with Jane Doe or do you want to stay here with me?
That seems to me like an insecurity on their part. They know, in a sense, whether it's subconscious or not, that they're not treating you as well as you should be treated. And then they see it like, oh, if they're probably not happy with me. Would you rather go, see someone else, or do you want to stay? And to me, that just screams that they're insecure and they know that they're doing something wrong, in a sense.
Well, and I think a lot of it stems from insecurities. But I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right with this one. They're insecure, or they, use language like this, well, you really seem to be having fun enjoying that talk to Bill earlier.
What, I can't have friends other than you? Seriously?
Exactly. And we get into that a little bit more too. But yeah, it seems like a lot of people, I'm not going to exclude myself from any of this because I know I've said those things. I didn't mean it in a bad way. Rather, like in more recent times, I've used, oh, wow, you're going to go out with them, huh? And I'm just kind of poking at the person's past, not necessarily the current situation. To sum this one up, you constantly feel stupid, worthless, on edge, full of anxiety, full of just fear, and I know we went into fear a little bit, and we'll probably hit that in another episode later on, but fear is a control mechanism. It's always been a control mechanism. So one of the things that abusers do is they make you feel afraid, worthless, stupid. And I equate this to the old saying that, if you believe you're blonde enough, you'll become stupid. Or if you believe or have heard so many times that you are stupid and worthless, you'll begin to believe it. And that's when the more damaging stuff tends to happen. Point 3. What's the point? By this, I mean your needs become unimportant to your partner. By needs, I mean you have, in any relationship, there are basic needs. Sex, connection, validation, appreciation, love, affection. And those are just the basic ones. I mean, people have other needs, like you need to have a place to stay, you need to have clothing, stuff like that. But these are more relationship centered: sex, connection, validation, appreciation, love, and affection. So let's talk about each of those in turn. Hey, mommy, how are you doing? Good to see you. I don't know if you can hear me or if you're just listening to the stream or watching the stream, but what is the need for sex? Well, in any healthy relationship, there is going to be sex. And by that, I don't necessarily mean intercourse either, because there's a lot of teenagers and younger people that get into relationship type things. And sex doesn't necessarily mean that physical intercourse. It can mean physical affection, kissing, holding hands, etc., etc. connection, you have to feel that connection between the people. And if that's missing, I think that's another place where a lot of things break down. One person isn't as into the other as the other one. Wow, that was kind of a conundrum, wasn't it? So like the guy doesn't necessarily love the girl as much as the girl loves the guy. Validation instead of, validation quite simply is, I understand what you're saying and here's my thoughts, or it's, I don't feel well. Okay, I understand you're not feeling well, so I'm going to do this for you. There's different levels of validation, but to validate the other person's feelings and emotions is huge. Welcome to the room. Appreciation. This is, please and thank you. That's pretty basic. I think we all get taught that. Well, at least we used to all get taught that when we were younger. I don't know so much about today's kids, but yeah.
And with the appreciation too, I think, please and thank yous are great, and I think they get overused though to an extent. So even, maybe once a week, once every couple of weeks, once a month, just going to the other person and saying, I may not say it enough, but I really do appreciate everything you do for me. I appreciate this. I appreciate that. Actually using the word appreciate can definitely make it
more meaningful.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, I fixed your microphone. That was bugging me.
I appreciate that.
Love is a basal emotion. Love, hate, fear, et cetera, et cetera. We all need to feel loved. And I don't mean like the mom loves the child. I mean, on a deeper level, this is the kind of love where you're in a relationship with somebody, and it's really a combination of that connection, validation, and appreciation and affection. It's not so much saying, hey, I love you, because those words are very overused in most relationships and oftentimes unmeant.
Not understood by the people that say them either. They might think they love them, but their actions speak otherwise.
Exactly. Again, saying I love you doesn't mean it. It's the actions behind it. Affection is another one. I hit on this one earlier. Kissing, touching, holding hands, back rubs. It doesn't necessarily even need to be that, but staring into your loved one's eyes can do amazing things for your relationship. So another thing, when you feel kind of what's the point, and by that I mean you're given empty promises that ends in a fight. You're being told you're needy, jealousy, insecurity, or downright madness. And we'll get into those a little bit more in the part where we actually explain the different types of abuses, but
of course everyone's needy. We have needs.
Well, we all have needs, yes. But this is like you're in a fight or an argument and the other person is like, God, you're needy. Ugh. Again, it goes back and makes you feel bad about yourself. And again, these things generally tend to stem from the jealousy and insecurity of the other person. Or you just feel like there's no goddamn point to anything. It doesn't mean necessarily the relationship, but you could get into that state of depression where you are just totally and completely blah.
No point in showering, no point in going to work. It's just disgusting.
Exactly.
Feeling. It really is.
Bringing up number 4. I almost said 5. Number 4 is the scorecard, which I'm sure everybody is familiar with. Guys hear about this all the time where, the woman is going to come back and bring something up from 10 years ago that they thought was completely over, and it's totally not. So here's the thing. We all make mistakes. Even the most loving, committed partner does something stupid and hurtful at some point in time. It happens. We all do it. Get off of me. Go away. Sometimes we need that alone time or the space. However, when it's brought up over and over and over and over again, it slowly kills even the most healthiest relationship out there. If I'm to sit here and I say over and over again that, I don't like the way you do your makeup, or I don't like the way you don't take out the trash, or I don't like the way you leave shit lying around, over and over and over, no matter what the healthiest relationship, it is still going to wear it down. Again, these are all control mechanisms that make you feel inferior. Firing shots at one at one or another is a control mechanism. Again, going back to, hey, why do you always leave your clothes on the floor? Well, that's one step away from saying, hey, pick your shit up, but it's also a control mechanism. You're being oddly silent.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the story side.
These things are, again, designed to shame and manipulate the other person. Take the garbage out, do the dishes, whatever. It can be meaningful tasks or meaningless tasks, and we get into a lot more of this here in a little bit.
And there's so many ways you could just rearrange that sentence to make it so much nicer. It's like, hey, if you've got time, could you please do this?
Oh, exactly.
And then all of a sudden there's no issue with it. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll do that if I have time.
Yeah. Yeah. Number 5 is the mine is always worse column. And what I mean by that is like, whatever you're going through, I have it worse. So you're having a bad day. Oh my God, you should have heard what I had to deal with today. It was so terrible.
The abusers always seem to turn themselves into the victim.
In some way, yeah. And again, it stems from the insecurities that they have. In a healthy relationship, both people need to take a turn at being supported and being the supporter. That's just how it is. But if the focus is always on the other person, like, I know you're really sick, but it's so stressful for me to have to deal with this stuff.
Or, I know you've got a fever of 102, but I still expect you to clean the house.
Exactly. Same thing. Nothing ever gets resolved in an argument. All couples argue. I don't know what just happened there. That was weird. All couples argue, and there is no trust that the other will be able to deal with the issue, or there is no trust. Okay, so see, this is the problem with me doing stuff when I'm awake as opposed to talking about it when I'm not so much. So nothing ever gets resolved and everything always ends in an argument. All couples do argue. It's how you argue that makes the difference. Hey, Aaliyah.
It all goes back to the communication and the ability to communicate effectively. You can say, hey, I know you're stressed, but, I feel like, and using the I statements, and this is going back to elementary school, the I statements always, to me at least, seem better instead of pointing the finger and saying, you never do this. You're always sucking
Absolutely.
at that. It's like, hey, I know it's stressful right now, but if, I feel like, and then whatever's bothering you, that's less likely to turn into a shouting contest.
And we'll get into some of that too a little bit later when we get into the how to deal with stuff. But you're right on point on that. The I statements are very, very important. And by that, instead of saying, you make me feel like shit, you can say, exactly, narcissistic behavior. You can always say things like, I feel when I hear blah that I am feeling bad, so I'll give an example here. So I feel whenever the house is dirty that I am worthless. That is putting the focus upon you, not the other person. So it doesn't put that person in such a defensive position. So that same thing in a bad way would be, this place always looks like shit. Why don't you clean it? Or I wish you would clean the house because it looks like shit, or anything like that. And like NY Girly there says, narcissistic behavior for sure. And again, we're going to get into more of this stuff. But the result of all of this is that there's buried needs and resentment for the other person. And by that, I mean, you stop communicating what you need to be healthy, to be happy, to be in a meaningful relationship, and you begin to resent the other person.
Yep.
Pardon me. So there's many signs of an abuser. And a lot of it depends on what kind of abuse we're looking at. So we're going to go into various different types of abuse and kind of see where all these line up. So signs of physical abuse. These are pretty easy to see. Somebody hits you, somebody punches you, kicks you, shove you, choking and slapping. Well, you know, if you're not into that kind of thing, yeah, that can be a problem. Using weapons to threaten, you know, grabbing a kitchen knife and say, I'm going to stab you, or, or even worse, pulling out a gun and say, I'm going to kill you, you know, controlling what you eat or when you sleep. Like, no, you can't go to bed until I do. I think you had mentioned that yesterday.
Yeah, my ex always used to get very, very pissed at me when I would be so tired that I ended up falling asleep before he did. It was, ugh.
That seems a bit silly to me, but yes, I mean that not to downplay that by any means. I just think that's a dumb reason for somebody to get upset.
Definitely. I thought it was pretty stupid.
Forcing you to do work against your will. You had mentioned the 102-degree fever and having to clean the house. Well, that's a bit on the not cool side. You know, if somebody is that sick, let them rest, for God's sake. But you get the general idea, and that can be any kind of work. For example, I know people who disguise their abusive relationships on or in BDSM type relationships, which we're not going in this episode, but, you know, they make their partner work and then they take all the money. So,
oh yeah, very familiar with that too.
Forcing you to use drugs or alcohol. You know, I've seen a lot of abuse type sufferers but turn to alcohol and or drugs as a means of escape. I get that, but it's when, you know, if I'm shooting up heroin and I'm like, here, have some, and you're like, no, dude, and I force it on you, that's an abuse. Stopping you from seeking medical treatment or calling the cops. This one you hear about all the time. You know, I started dialing 911. He slaps the phone out of my hand. I start dialing 911. She takes the phone and smashes it against the wall. Anytime that you are stopped from seeking medical treatment for a wound, a cut, it could be a burn, it could be a number of different things, or that you can't call the police for assistance, that's an issue. We'll go on. So signs of sexual abuse. Again, this is forcing or manipulating you to perform sexual acts. You had mentioned this one earlier as well.
Yeah. I've got a 9 years worth of experience with majority of this stuff, actually.
Well, and I believe in, forgive me for stealing your example, but him forcing you to have sex when you didn't want to. I mean, it's that simple.
Well,
or even the number 2 one there, which is more to the point, demanding sex when you're not willing or able.
Well, my thing is, I was sleeping 3 a.m. He wakes up with a freaking boner, part of my language. And
oh, yeah, I'm offended.
And then wakes me up when I'm in the middle of probably my REM sleep cycle, and I'm groggy, only half there, and pretty much demands me to get him off some way or another. And then if I'm that tired to the point where I'm just like, yeah, no, let me sleep, again, he would get seriously pissed.
Yeah. And we're hearing the sorry to hear that's in the chat room.
I appreciate that. It was years ago, and thank God I figured a way to get out of it. So yay.
Exactly. That's the important thing right there. Next is, harming you during sex by choking, holding, or striking you. I think this goes further into blood play, cutting you, biting you to the point where you're bleeding, scratching you so hard that you're bleeding, whatever that is. And again, that's if you're not into it, just because if you're into it and your boyfriend or girlfriend is into it, more power to you. But this is a generalization. Forcing you to watch pornography is another sign of sexual abuse. Some people are into it. Some people aren't. Respect their boundaries. You have to be able to set those.
I want you to watch this so you can learn to do it better.
Yeah, that's another good one. And then insulting your sexual ways. God, you can't give head. Or God, you can't eat pussy. Or, whatever the case is. You fuck like a 2-year-old. Okay, well, how do you know what a 2-year-old fucks like? First off, and 2, that's gross. But you get the point here, people. You're not. Yeah, they're just insulting the way that you perform or have sex.
Why can't you do this better?
Yeah. Why can't you learn how to get me off this way or whatever? And then we have psychological abuse. In my opinion, this is probably the worst type of abuse. And I say that only because physical wounds will heal in time. Scars, maybe not so much, but the majority of physical abuse will fade after time.
Bruises will go away. The muscles will heal themselves. That used to be my mindset on it. I'd rather he hit me than give me all kinds of emotional and psychological abuse, because actually, you know what? The wounds heal. Pain goes away. This shit doesn't.
Yeah, this is the stuff that sticks with you, and this is why it's so hard to get over. Signs are threatening to hurt you, your loved ones, your pets, your children, your Xbox, whatever the case might be. Okay. That's pretty straightforward. They say, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill your parents. I'm going to kill your kid. I'm going to kill, whatever the case might be. I'm going to blow up your car. I'm going to make you destitute. Any of that kind of stuff.
Seems like a pretty good reason for me to stay. I mean, you're going to kill my family. Okay. Yeah, I'll stay with you.
Well, and that is kind of the mindset. You want to protect those you love, your kids, your parents, your family, whatever the case might be. So yeah, you don't want them to do that kind of stuff. Yeah, Leah here in one of the chat rooms says she had social anxiety and wanted to start working again, but she had a boyfriend who kept telling her that she can't work for 3 years. He said that I would not be able to handle it. Gotcha. Yeah, and that's right along the same thing. It's like you're belittling, or he, in this case, Leah, is belittling you. So I totally understand that. Another form of psychological abuse is controlling the time that you spend with others or monitoring where you go. Who in this world hasn't had somebody that's like, where you been? Where'd you go? What'd you do? How come you didn't text me for 5 minutes? I mean, I don't know what exactly people think people can do in 5 minutes, but hey.
Your friends have to be our friends. You can't have any friends of your own.
Yeah, that you can't go out on your own. You can't, it's ridiculous. But we've all had those people in our lives. And, in most cases and in most relationships, the one person is going to say to the other, what difference does it make? Leave me the fuck alone, or, see ya. But again, we're talking about an abuser and an abusee here. So this becomes a problem. They control not only the time that you spend with others, like you can no longer go out with your friends. You can no longer go to the store by yourself. It doesn't matter. Or if you do, you have to know, hey, I have to text this person. I have to call them, let them know every second of what I'm doing. Another sign is controlling what you wear. I see this a lot with guys who are with women, obviously, but the accusation is that you'll attract too much attention. Damn, honey, why are you going out looking all good like that? You're going to get all these guys to be talking to you. What are you doing that for? Do you want them to like hit on you? that kind of stuff.
Who you getting all good looking for?
Yeah, exactly.
Excuse me?
Yeah,
Me?
and Michelle mentions on Facebook, what did you spend money on? Accounting down to the last penny. Yep, exactly. And we hit that here, I believe, next maybe. Oh, yeah, here's a good one. Damaging or stealing your belongings. I'm not talking for crack. I'm just talking to hurt you.
Oh, you hurt my feelings. I'm going to punch a hole in your Xbox.
Yeah, Leo, we get into that one too. She says, same boyfriend at the time also said, if I leave him, I'll not survive. And he meant it, that he would go and do something stupid. We hit both of those. That's another sign of psychological abuse, is the whole person who says, you know, I can't live without you, you know, and brings you back in with that guilt trip.
Oh, the guilt trips are the worst. Oh, but adding on to what Leah's saying there too, my ex told me that if I left him, A, no one would ever put up with my shit the way he does, and B, I'd never find anyone else like him.
Well, and you know, we can hope for both. That's all I got to say. You know, if you're in a relationship and somebody uses that lame shit, please, by all means, tell them I hope so. Because A, you're saying, I hope there's nobody else like you out there. And I hope other people will put up with my shit without this kind of crap. Okay. But we'll get into that later. The other one I love on this one, right, is they blame you for the abuse, saying that you deserve it, or why are you making me do this? Why do you always, you know, they use those you statements. Those you statements put you A, on the defensive, anybody.
Why do you always push my buttons? You know exactly how to make me mad.
Exactly. And that's going to put me on the defensive. So those kind of things, or blaming you for the abuse. You know, I've seen this a lot, especially in more of the violent type domestic violence situations where the guy, and forgive me, I haven't seen the physical violence as bad in women on men as it is men on women, but I know it exists. So when I say this, I'm just using male and female as a transitive kind of thing. When he hits her, she hits him, and they say, you know, why do you make me do this? You know, like you're punishing a dog for pooping on the carpet kind of thing.
So wouldn't hit a dog for that either, but hey.
Yeah, well. The other thing I want to mention here is gaslighting, making you question your reality. That's what gaslighting is, in case you didn't know. And it's like, that didn't happen that way, or you never remember correctly, making you think that what you remember or what you did or what you saw was not what you saw. This is made famous in that one song, It Wasn't Me. Who's that, Shaggy? Have you ever heard that?
I ever heard that.
I'll have to play that later for you, but
yeah, gaslighting is always
it's
fun
like,
too.
you know, she came in, she saw him doing it on the counter. Oh, wasn't me. On the sofa. Oh, wasn't me. You know, all these things where she saw it, and he sits there and he says, no, that wasn't me. It never happened that way. That's bullshit. You're remembering incorrectly. It wasn't me. It was somebody else. You know, really? Okay. But it makes you question. Yeah, exactly. It makes you question your reality to the point where you're like, well, maybe I didn't happen that way. So that's another great sign of psychological abuse.
I realize y'all can't see I'm rolling my eyes, but believe me, it's happening.
Mommy loves that song, she says. Is it Shaggy? I don't remember. I think it's Shaggy, but it might not be. So signs of emotional abuse. Again, this one and psychological are, in my mind, the worst of the worst, because these scars don't necessarily go away easily without years of therapy. Yes, it is Shaggy. Okay, cool. Sorry, I had to sidetrack that there. So signs of emotional abuse: attacking your sense of self-worth. Again, you're stupid. You're fucking worthless. You're a piece of shit.
You can't do anything
right. You can't do anything right. Why can't you do this correctly? Who the fuck taught you how to do this? You're an idiot.
How old are you?
Yeah. Those things, again, all these things are control mechanisms, but these are the worst, right? Because then after so long, you begin believing these kind of things, and they end up scarring deeper and deeper and deeper into you. insulting you, calling you names, criticizing you, humiliating you. We see these all the time. God, you're stupid bitch, fucking whore, criticizing you, you suck. So many deep ones there. And then humiliating you, I do want to mention, as I saw this actually in what was that? That was I want to say it was at Chili's or something like that years ago. This guy had taken his wife and kid out to it was either a Chili's or an Applebee's. I don't remember which. But one of the kids spilt their soda on the mom while she was trying to feed him. It was a little baby or something, somewhere like 2-3 years old, whatever. The guy stood her up and ripped her shirt off and said, "That's how you treat the shit that I buy you?" And that's always stuck with me. That is just ridiculous.
Really?
But it's very humiliating. I mean, imagine being the woman, right? You're in this fucking busy restaurant. Of course, I don't know. It wasn't too busy. I guess it was an afternoon kind of lunch deal. But at any rate, there's strangers around and somebody rips your shirt off. Like literally, it was a button down type shirt and he just ripped it off of her. And, she's standing there in her bra. And I mean, she looked petrified.
What an ass.
So things like that, acting jealous or possessive or accusing you with being other partners. I think everybody sees this at some point, whether it's playing or not. It's like, you went out with what's his name? You fucking him? Why are you fucking this person? Who you going out to see? Those kind of things.
That's just annoying.
Or not, again, this goes back to others not letting you go out, controlling where you go, et cetera, et cetera. Withholding affection or acknowledgement in order to punish you.
You pissed me off.
You ain't getting no dick. But I've seen that. It's more, I see that more women towards men than men towards women, at least in the sexual realm. Now, affection in general could just be, pushing them away, not giving them the kiss, not holding hands in public, not doing, whatever that might be, but withholding that affection or acknowledgement, even like they exist, walking around like literally you don't see them, in an effort to punish you. It's kind of like the silent treatment on steroids.
And I'd like to add to that withholding affection. Now, I've also seen in some instances when the victim is feeling so down, so depressed because of how they're being treated, they're likely to not want to give affection, mainly because they are not feeling it because the person's an asshole.
Well, I think that's a little bit different than what we're saying here. This is on the realm of the abuser to the abusee side.
Yeah, but then if they do withhold that affection because they're depressed because of how they're being treated, an abuser is likely to turn the tables and say, "Well, you're not doing this, so why should I, no.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we're hearing these all in here. Best to leave, yes, best to leave. Get the fuck out, et cetera, et cetera. Also cheating on you intentionally. Now, I know a lot of women see this more than men. I think it's because men don't equate sex with love as much as women do. And I get that, I get that, not just like, oh, hey, I get that, I'm going to go cheat on somebody. But I get that in the realm of, for a woman, sex is a more intimate thing. I mean, something is being put inside of you typically. And that's a little more intimate than, just pounding one out. So I get that, but I see this a lot more men doing to women where they're like, well, you won't clean the house, so I'm going to go fuck somebody else. Makes perfect sense, right? Completely logical.
Loads.
So then how does that make you feel? That makes you feel like shit. The guy that you care about or the girl that you care about has just done this to you. It's all emotional abuse. Lying to you is another thing. Again, we can go back to Shaggy and the wasn't me thing.
Gaslighting, you don't remember it, right? I never said that. You never told me that. It was a downright lie.
Yeah. Or, comes home with lipstick on the collar. What happened? Oh, I don't know. Somebody, gave me a hug earlier. Must have done that. Whatever. Don't lie to me. That's fucking stupid. So how do you get out of a toxic relationship?
With extreme care?
Yeah.
I
But
realize it's a generalization, but
there's a lot of thought about what is best, how is best to do it. And depending on where you go, there's a number of different ways. But first and foremost, you need to decide that you want to leave, period. And brings me to my next point. Nobody can make you leave if you don't actually want it and want it to happen. So I know of a lot of women who have been in physically violent relationships who say they want to leave, but they never take that next step, which has always baffled me. It's like, this guy's a complete asshole to you and you don't want to leave. Why? So it's very hard for the abusee to leave. So the key to a healthy relationship is knowing your worth and your value and not letting your partner define it for you.
and sometimes charging interest on that value too.
I would say so. I am the shit. You fucking need to respect that. The other thing that you need to do is do what you need to take care of yourself. So there's various trains of thought on this. You can start by doing affirmations to yourself. I am not a piece of shit. I am worthy. I am lovable. I am, spectacular, whatever it takes to make you feel better about yourself. Now, unless it is a physical abusive relationship, it can take time to get your mindset out of the I am a worthless piece of shit.
Even if it is physical, it can take some time, especially if the threats, the psychological aspect of it are towards people other than yourselves, like
your kids,
your family, your siblings.
Mm-hmm.
That can also add it to take time, because if you're afraid that leaving this person is going to result in your family getting killed, I'm sorry. No.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't want to say don't rush it, but sometimes you have to. But the biggest part is that you have to decide that you are going to leave. That's the first and biggest thing right there, is that you have to decide that you're going to leave and you're going to cut off all contact with them, which is my next point. When you do, you cut all contact. Delete their not their social media, but your connection to their social media pages. Take their phone number, block it, block their text messages, block their email address, whatever it takes. You need to get the fuck away from these I can't talk today. These people. And why? Because they will lure you back.
Guilt trips are great like that.
Every time. They will try to lure you back, and they'll do it in a number of ways. I'm going to kill myself if you don't come back. Well, shit, that just puts a whole lot of stress on me if this fucker dies. Does it? You could be like, okay, just do it over the sink so I don't have to clean it up.
Well, guilt trips are seriously effective on so many levels.
They are. And it's because you are in that state of mind where you already have been beaten down, sometimes physically, sometimes emotionally, whatever. You have been beaten down to the point where you still love this person, right? You still care about the person, but they are no good for you. And it's easy to bring somebody back into that relationship that still cares, still loves. And I'm not saying that you have to say, fuck you, I hate you, I hope you die. Although that may be the case, you don't have to react that way. Ultimately, in any situation, you are in control. And I say that because You might not be able to control how person X acts towards you, but you are 100% in control of how you react to it. And that's the key. Join a support group. If you're still with that person, tell them that you're going to therapy. 9 times out of 10, an abuser does not want to go with you to that. It's true. If you're an abuser, and I don't think anybody in here is, but we've all had those abusive relationships. If you're in an abusive situation, that is one way to get them to let you go out. I need to go to therapy. Now,
I need to work on myself. They'll
Yeah,
be like,
well-
yeah, you do.
and I mean, you can phrase that in different ways. I want to be better for you. Oh, really? All right, go. Do the dishes when you get home, bitch. It's that kind of mentality. They won't want to go. You could always ask them, hey, do you want to go to therapy with me? Oh, hell no. There's also a massive amount of strength in your friends. When you do decide to leave, there are things that freak us the fuck out, right? Where am I going to live? How am I going to live? What am I going to pay bills with? Do I have bills? I don't know. I've been paying this other person's bills for so long. I don't know if any of them are actually mine.
Imagine that.
But you need to contact your friends. Let them know the situation. 9 times out of 10, if you need to get out of a physically abusive relationship, there is at least one of your friends that is like, get your ass over here now. You go, you don't look back. Take what you need for like 3 to 5 days and get the fuck out of there.
And I know in my experience, the few friends that I talked to about my situation before I decided to leave, every last one of them said, really? I would never have guessed. But as soon as that shock wore off, they're like, you need to do what's right for you. Screw him.
Yep, exactly. I'm having a problem with the 1069, the arrow at the moment. It's not connecting for some strange ass reason. Anyway, so who knows if we're actually live on there, but we are everywhere else. But yeah, there's going to be strength in your friends. Count on that. I don't use your friends by any means, but definitely they will help you. Yeah. Leah here says, I contacted my father who I didn't talk to in a year, sucked it up to ask for help to get out. Best thing I ever did for myself. And I bet you, Leah, he was there in a heartbeat, wasn't he? I'll bet you he was. Because when you're in these abusive relationships, the abuser will cut you off from the support systems that you have.
Yeah. And
every time.
Yep. He wanted me to be all inclusive with his family, despite the fact that, quote unquote, I was family now. No, I'm sorry. That's a mistake. But, his mom, his brothers, his grandma were all living with us at one point, and I had to be all inclusive of them. They were his family. But let me try and vent to anyone in my family. Oh, who are you talking to about me behind my back? What? You go to your family and I have to include your family, but my family is off limits.
Yeah. And again, that's the first step in being an abuser too, is that you want to cut them off from the world. Their friends, family, whoever. Get them out of their supportive situation so that you can take them over. Yeah. And Leah says, yes, he was. I left half of my belongings behind to get out fast. And you may have to, like I said, take 3 outfits.
I took a duffel bag. That was it.
Yeah. Take 3 outfits, a pair of shoes, what you have on your body, and get the fuck out if you can. It's harder when you have kids because your kids don't understand the situation. They don't understand, I'm going to use mommy and daddy. They don't understand mommy and daddy are fighting. They don't understand why mommy and daddy are fighting. They don't understand the situation, but that's okay. Still get them out of it for their own protection as well. Last thing here, don't take him or her back. That is the worst possible thing you can do. everybody that I know of who has gotten out and then takes them back ends up getting worse. And there's statistics about this. I meant to pull them up for this, but I don't have them handy. But I do know a great number of the ones that go back end up dead.
Yeah, because their exes or significant others that are the abusers are so pissed that they even remotely thought about leaving. They punish them for it. It's stupid.
Exactly. They'll play the sad puppy dog eyes long enough to get you back into their life, and it gets exponentially worse. So whatever you do, please, for the love of God, don't take them back. So here we got story time. I know Alex has a bunch of stories, and I'm going to let her take the floor and tell you all kind of the whole situation that she had. Once she's done, then I'll come back and tell you about my former situation, which, yeah, we'll just get into that later. But Alex, go ahead, man. The floor is yours.
Sweet, thanks. So yeah, when I was just coming into adulthood, some crap happened in my life, and this was before I met my ex, but from as best I can tell right now, my subconscious was crying out for a friend, for anybody that could remotely make me feel better about myself. And I played RuneScape online. It was fun. It took my mind off things, and I met my ex on this game. Lived all the way across the country from me, but we seemed to have a lot in common. We were, great at making each other feel better. And then, so about a year after that friendship started, he came out to meet me and my family. And for that week, everything was great. And then I got a plane ticket to go out and meet his family. It was a round trip ticket. Very disgusted in myself that I did not use the other half of it. But everything for the 2 weeks was amazing. We were like really happy. And so I didn't use that other side of the round trip ticket. Ended up living with this guy for 9 years. Again, wish it hadn't lasted that long. But hey, you live and you learn. But as I mentioned, everything for him was family, family, family. And if I bought a bag of chips from the store to split with him, his family would get super pissed if I didn't buy anything for them. So that kind of was irritating in and of itself. But, you're inclusive. I like that. You're family oriented. I like that. So things go on. And after about a year is when things started getting physical. When he got mad, he would get, start slapping, start choking, whatnot. And I did. I wanted to leave after about a year and a half of being with him. I tried. I got so far as probably 2 towns away. And I made the mistake of not cutting off contact. Get a call, guilt trips me into coming back. Actually ended up calling the cops on my parents because they wouldn't let me go back. And that was, I'm an adult. They can't hold me against my will. Worst decision of my life. But it went on cycles. We were good for a year and a half sometimes. And then I would get to the point where I wanted to leave. And it cycled. Guilt trip every time.
So how did he guilt trip you back in the first place?
The I'm sorry. It was all my fault. It won't happen again.
So he used the it's all your fault or
No,
all his fault?
It was all his fault.
Okay.
It's all my fault. It won't happen again. I need you. I'm going through some stuff right now and I won't be able to get through it without you. And then progressively the guilt trips got worse. About halfway through the 4.5 year mark, I wanted to leave, and it was, I'll kill your parents. And while this would have been extremely difficult because they're halfway across the country at this point, it still resonated. I'm like, you've already gotten really physical with me. I'm inclined to believe you at this point. And, and I would go numb for periods at a time, months at a time.
You mean emotionally?
Emotionally numb, yes. I would cut off all my feelings. I would just be about as emotionless as a rock so that I couldn't get hurt repeatedly. And then I would get really tired of being numb. I'd turn my emotions back on. And, life goes on. And then also, then it turned into the problem of, I want you to hold your tongue so that I don't have to worry about you and my family fighting. Well, first of all, let us get our own place, kick them the fuck out, and we'll be fine.
So you lived with his
mother. And his mother was, I'm sorry, the world's biggest bitch. She was always right, whether she was right or not. Seemed to pass that on to him, too. But so I swallowed all of my feelings. If she berated me, which she did regularly, I would just hold it in. I wouldn't say anything. I'd go in my room. I'd disappear, whatever. But that well of patience, as it were, all those bottled up emotions eventually bubbled up over the top, and I'd snap. But every time I'd snap, I was the bad guy. It was always my fault. I'm imagining things. Gaslighting.
Wow.
Imagine that, right? And so usually at that point, I'd turn off my emotions and be like, you know what? Fuck it. And then finally, at the very end, I had family that was getting married. And I made it very well known that I was taking a vacation and I was going out to this wedding. And what I didn't tell them is that I wasn't using the other half of that round trip ticket to go see the wedding. I was just going to take, what would fit on the airplane and not come back. However, that's not quite how it played out. I realized, oh crap, I have family right down the road, about 35 miles down the road. What's going to happen to them if I just disappear? Because, again, the threat's about family. The threat's about, if you ever leave me, going to kill them. And so I called up my family, let them know my thoughts on the matter, and that I was very much scared for them if I just got up and left. And everyone wanted me to leave for the longest time. But again, no one can make you leave if you don't want to or are too scared to, what have you. And so they came out, helped pack up my family, and amusingly enough, his mom...
Wait, who came out to help pack up your family?
My dad.
Oh, okay. So your other family.
Yeah. And then, amusingly enough, my ex's mom said, oh, are you going to ride out with them? I was like... No, I was just going to give them my bag so that I don't have to pay $50 to put it on the plane. But you know what? It's actually a really good idea. What do you know? So the day that everyone was set to leave, I went over, I got dressed like I was going to work. He was working a 12 to 10 shift. I was working a 2 to 11 shift. And he worked a little further out than I did, so he got ready and left first. But I got dressed like I was going to work and drove the car to where I worked, handed the keys to the manager over the front end, hopped in a friend's car. They drove me over to where my family was leaving from. And sure enough, yep, never looked back. And by the time he got off, I was 600 miles away.
Nice.
But the first pit stop that we made, the first McDonald's food, bathroom, what have you, I took my phone, I took the SIM card out of my phone, flushed the SIM card down the toilet, and smashed the phone against the rock. Yeah, there's no way he was getting in touch with me.
Nice.
And then, funny enough, he posted on Facebook, oh, I don't know why, Alex has been missing for 3 days. I don't know why her family's not worried. Well, Dipshit.
'cause
If
I
my
knew where you
family
were.
is not worried, grow a clue.
Yeah.
But yeah, at 9 years of dealing with that bullshit was more than enough for me. And as evidenced by the it takes time to heal, I still remember it very vividly.
I'm sure. Well, and just listening to you, tell your story, you could hear the anxiety in there.
Just a
And
little
this
bit.
has been how many years since?
2. It was
Okay, so it's
2
not.
years almost to the month that I left.
Wow. So it hasn't been that long, so that explains the anxiety in the voice. So let me ask you this: are you still worried about him finding you?
Not particularly. I did forget to mention that as soon as I got out to my permanent location here, I filed a restraining order because of his violent threats and tendencies. And we got a lawyer to serve the papers on the way down there across the nation. And the judge said that if they don't show up, or the papers even said if they don't show up, it puts a potential warrant out for his arrest by not coming to court when summoned. And so that was really very much anxiety for me because I go into the courtroom on the day of the hearing wondering, oh, he's not going to show up. He's 2,000 miles away. But what if he does show up? What do I say? How, do I just not look at him and whatnot? But sure enough, no, he didn't show up. And the judge took his absence for an admission of guilt
Mm-hmm.
and issued that restraining order, made sure that, sure enough, I did not want to talk to him ever again, and made it very clear that if he in any way remotely tries to contact me, whether it be over the phone, over the internet, or in person, they will be going to jail. So that eased my mind just slightly in regards to that.
Yeah,
But
I mean, I don't know. I've seen a lot of former abuse victims, go that same route. They get the
restraining order?
thank you. I was going to say registration order, but that wasn't it. They get the restraining order and then end up seeing them again and being like, oh, I miss him, so I'm going to go back and cancel the restraining order. And then wham, oh, look, you're in the hospital. So I've seen that. I've also seen the ones where they get the restraining order and the other person doesn't care. They just go completely, totally batshit crazy, find the person, hunt them down, just to kill them. And so, I mean, I'm not trying to scare you by any means, but if I did, I'm sorry. But I've seen that
Scared
a
myself.
lot where the restraining orders don't really work for you. And that's really sad. I mean, anywhere you go, the restraining order, I can't talk today. The restraining order only works when they're there when the cops show up. That's it. But, how long does it take to pull a trigger? How long does it take to smack the shit out of somebody?
Not very. But on that
And typically
note,
most police agencies have a 20 to 30 minute show up window. God, now I got hiccups. This is lovely. Sorry.
well, on that note, though, fortunately, my dad, being the one that took, got me and saved me, whatnot, used to be in the military and has mentioned on several occasions that if for whatever stupid reason he decides to come find me, he was in the military. And fortunately, I still only live about 5 minutes from the house.
Nice.
So on that note, if I have any kind of inkling, it's call dad and let dad do military stuff.
Do military stuff. Well, my situation was nowhere near like that. But it was more on the emotional abuse more than anything. A lot of it, I was married for 5 years. And during that 5 years, I was slowly convinced that I was a worthless piece of shit. And it wasn't really until after she had already left and I woke up at 350 pounds and I looked in the mirror and I said, Jesus Christ, who ate me? Because, I was huge. And it wasn't until that moment that I really realized, wow, I was in a fucked up relationship. Thankfully I didn't have to worry about the whole take her back kind of thing, because I've always been one that if I get out of a relationship, I cut ties with the person. Now, in this case, at this point in life, I can say I understood what my ex did. I understood how she did it. I understand why she did it. And I don't hold any ill will towards her.
Kudos to you.
Basically, I let her do what happened to me. So, did I take the victim role? Sure. Because, I'm like, well, A, she was young. B, she had her own mental issues that she was dealing with. And it wasn't until after we had split that she actually went and got help and figured out what it was and got on meds and then learned some other ways to cope with her issues. And, I don't consider her a great friend, but, I am friendly with her. So, it can work both ways. And I know I really cut that story short, but that's okay, because we got more to go through. All right. So at any rate, I got through it. You got through it. It's possible. That's my point. And if you feel like it's not possible and you feel like you are a victim of domestic violence or in a toxic relationship and need to talk to somebody, for God's sake, please reach out. There's a national hotline for domestic violence and toxic relationships, and that number is 800-799-7233. Please give them a call.
And I'd also like to tag onto that real quick. You mentioned saying that you're going to therapy to work on yourself. If you can at least get out of the house on the ruse that you are going to therapy, you could even make a drive down to the police station and talk to them.
Absolutely.
If you cannot actively dial 911 or the non-emergency line and say, this is what's going on.
Well, and I know
find a way to get out the house.
Yeah, there's another way too, where if it's at a physical point, and I'm sure everybody has probably seen this online already, but it is a true thing that you can call 911 and act like you're ordering a pizza. If you can diffuse the situation enough to calm down and say, hey, let me buy you a pizza or something along those lines, you can always call them and they will, they'll be like, yeah, I'd like to order a large pepperoni, please, or whatever the case may be. And the lady will on the phone, or whoever is on the phone, is going to say, do you realize that you have called 911? And then you say yes. And they will say, are you in a dangerous situation? You say yes. And you can say, about how long will that be? And they will give you the time that the cops will show up. So that is a real thing. You can do that. And that's one way. Now, that being said, the abusers may already know this as well. So, you might be trying to do it a different way, like calling, I don't know, Uber or, something. But you can always do that with 911. They are trained to recognize, violent situations and stuff like that. And they simply ask you that yes or no question. Are you in a dangerous situation? Yes. Okay. And then they dispatch somebody. How do you heal then from a toxic relationship? The first thing you have to do is say to yourself, or stop asking yourself rather, why is this person treating me this way? It's irrelevant. Why did this person do that to me? Again, irrelevant. What is wrong with this person? Again, irrelevant. Are we hitting the point here? These are typically things, are they just an asshole? Or are they a sociopath, a narcissist? Is this person just simply a terrible person? It doesn't matter. They're doing it to you. That alone tells you that they're a terrible person. Well, and they're not necessarily a terrible person. They might have mental issues as well. And I would hazard to guess that they do, because a normal, healthy person is not going to treat other people this way. Instead, I want you to ask yourself these things. What did I miss that I allowed this person into my life? How can I grow from this experience so it doesn't repeat itself? That's an important thing. You know, how did this person get into my life? And how did this person have a good night, Leah? And how did this person get to the point in my life that they could take over so much power? Do I want this to be a story about being a victim or a victor? And then, do I want to waste my time, my thoughts, my energy on this toxic person, or use it for a higher purpose? The key here is to learn from this. Figure out how they took that hold on you. Did they do it in persuasion? Did they do it in, how did they get that power over you? Because if they got that power over you, that means the next person can do the same thing. If you don't identify it, you can't break the cycle.
Well, and that's something I definitely did when I left. I told myself that if I ever got in another relationship, that if I saw any of the signs of that I experienced, and I experienced most of them, that I would cut it off as soon as it started. I'm not going to let it go on. I'm not going to let them think that they can do this to me. And I did see something on Facebook at one point that said it's not love you're afraid of, it's that you're afraid that everyone is going to be like the person that destroyed you. I'm glad that I don't feel that way, because in my mind, when he said you're never going to find someone else like me, my thought was, good, I better not. And I don't like to hold other people's actions towards the next person, because I know everybody's unique. But I did promise myself that I am not going to let it happen again. And it did take some time to not feel guilty, though. Honestly,
Yeah.
I felt very guilty for leaving for quite a long time. I was still very depressed for about 6 to 8 months after leaving. But then I decided to focus on me, and I went to a bunch of concerts, had fun, did the things I was never allowed to do in that relationship. And slowly I started to realize I am worth it.
Yep. But I mean, that again, you had to identify those things that he was able to do to take control of you, so that those were red flags, like right away, right?
Definitely.
It isn't something that you can just be like, nobody's ever going to do that again, and then the next person does it. And I've seen that way too many times. So grow from these experiences. Don't necessarily have them if you can avoid them, but grow from them when you do. You are not a bad person. You are not a piece of shit. You are not a fuck up. You are not worthless. You are the exact opposite of those things. You're a beautiful person. You are very worth it. You have so many things that you are good at. Don't let somebody take that kind of power over you. So, in summary, and this actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be as far as time, but in summary, if you are presently caught up in telling stories about toxic misbehaviors of someone, the time has come to stop getting caught up in the name calling, contempt, and blame. Instead, it's time to recognize that you're just distracting yourself with all the drama, chaos, and the static. Yeah. The more you stay with and or complain about the toxic person, the more you're merely delaying doing the important inner work that you need to do to heal your wounds, expand your limiting beliefs, and show yourself far more love and respect. All of the time expended on them could be time spent expanding you and growing who you are.
And I had a lot of people, I'm sorry to interrupt
That's
you.
fine.
I had a lot of people tell me how strong I was, merely that I was able to stay in the relationship as long as I did and not buckle under all of the abuse. And I think that affirmation from being told that I'm strong, being told that, I am a good person, and I think somebody told me, you'll make somebody a great wife someday, has really helped me realize that it wasn't my fault. It was just a really shit situation.
Exactly. And I think that's the problem most abusees don't fail to see, is that it's not their fault. Again, it comes back to that whole thing. You can't expect to change a person. You can't expect another person to treat you the way that you want to be treated if you allow them not to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't have any of my own money that I made either during those 9 years. The entire paycheck just went to him.
Yeah, and that's pretty typical. I've seen that a lot, and especially in like BDSM type relationships where the guys have no concept of what they're actually doing in BDSM to begin with. They just get on this power trip, and that always worries me about my friends who get in those kind of relationships. But I'm not saying that they can't be healthy. I'm saying that the majority of them are not, because they're not done correctly. But we can get into that in another topic, another day. At this point, we are well over our hour mark. So I believe that's all I had today. And I decided that for the show, what we're going to do is a single topic each week. And that way we can make sure that we cover everything about said topic, right? And I also decided that I wanted a catchphrase to end each show with. And the best one I found, there's a movie, I don't remember if it's 80s or 90s, but it's Eddie Murphy, and it's called Holy Man. And if any of you have ever seen this was a great movie. And basically he ends it all with, remember, let go, give in, and take the journey. For 106.9 The Arrow, Alex and myself and Taboo, of course, we want to say thank you, God bless, and have a good evening.
Have a good night, guys.
Wow. What the fuck is wrong with the Arrow tonight? But it wasn't doing anything. And it won't connect. So I don't know what the deal is there. I got to look into that. Alrighty. Thanks, Mommy. Thanks, Night Girl. New York girly. Thanks, So Smooth. You're awesome. Being my first contributor. Woot. Oh, wait. I already stopped. Never mind.
Somebody actually tell me? Oh, that was that thing. Sweet.
Oh, I forgot to say what we're going to talk about next week. Oops.
Ooh.